struggling with poor sleep and weight loss resistance? This is the episode you must listen to. In today's episode, we answer 3 key questions. How do you know if you have leptin resistance? What is the connection between blue light and leptin resistance? What are the top ways to reduce leptin resistance? Mugdha Pradhan is the CEO and founder of iThrive, TedX speaker, healer, and spiritual coach. In 2017, despite having a master's in nutrition, she struggled with her own personal health issues, learning the nuances of functional medicine, which transformed her health. She lost 37 kilos and reversed an autoimmune condition. Moving from Canada to India, she introduced functional nutrition through iThrive, Healing and Beyond in 2019. With her expertise and her ability to build strong teams and beautiful culture and her passion for scientific research and evidence-based work, iThrive has raised 2 rounds of funding so far. She not only helps people solve their physical health issues, but also complex mental, emotional, and spiritual issues. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, I'm Deepa, light functional medicine practitioner, author, and yogini, and you're listening to the Sleep Whisperer podcast, the only sleep podcast with conversations and meditations. I'm on a mission to share profoundly insightful sleep conversations with global visionaries that merge together functional medicine and ancient wisdom. Breathe in bliss through weekly guided meditations and let yourself enter the land of dreams. Together, let's unravel the pieces, get to the roots, and understand the right tools to transform your sleep completely. Through this podcast, I want you to dream the best version of yourself. It's time to regain hope and begin your sleep journey.
Mugdha, such a pleasure to host you today on the Sleep Whisperer podcast. And, I watch a lot of what you put out and you have a great content. Your story is very inspiring. So I thought that even though today we are talking about sleep, blue light, and leptin resistance, of course, I do want to talk about how does that apply to each of us personally. But what got you into functional nutrition and what prompted this journey of trying to change people's life for the better?
Sure, thanks. Even before I go into my story, Deepa, big congratulations to you on your book. Is this your first book?
Yes, this is the first.
Super. I'm really excited to read it. I'll be ordering it soon. But congratulations. I know creating a book is like birthing a baby. So great work. And I'm really honored to be here on your podcast. I know you've had some really amazing speakers, some people who are on the top of their game from the world. So thank you for inviting me. My personal story, well, see, I had studied nutrition. I've done my master's in nutrition a long time ago. 2001 is when I graduated from SNDT in Mumbai. But at that time, the kind of work that was there was mostly like gym jobs or hospital, like clinical dietitians, but that was still like mostly catering, not really real nutrition work. So I kind of got disillusioned with the work prospects there and switched. And I actually went into HR. I did XLRI, went into HR, did corporate life for, I think, 13, 14 years or something. And in that process of living that corporate life and then all the other things that was happening in my personal life, I was married for 14 years, so it's not really like the happiest marriage. I was mostly living according to society's idea of who I should be as a woman. So I was checking off a lot of boxes. Like I was like a really good daughter, really good daughter-in-law, good mother, good wife, good employee, good friend. All boxes were getting ticked off, but internally I was really hollow. And that hollowness I would often compensate for with food. So the void called depression, like I've battled with depression. I was diagnosed with clinical depression. I was an antidepressant for an entire year postpartum. But my support mechanism became food. So by 2016, I had reached this point where I was like clinically obese. I was 97 kgs. I had Hashimoto. I didn't know it at that time. I learned it later when I actually learned functional nutrition. But I had Hashimoto's. I had pre-diabetes. Insulin resistance was off the roof. And of course, like mentally, emotionally, I was not in the best place. Physically, I look much older than I do now. So it is in a bad place. And that was the year, 2016 was the year. 2017 actually is when I chose to come back to India. By then, we had moved to Canada as a family, my ex-husband, me, and my daughter. And I just had enough of that life. So I chose to come back to India with my kid. And I came back and like, the stress of like walking out of a marriage and then like the reaction that you see from the world around you. Like dad was the least supportive to say at that point of time. Now he understands why I did it. So it was really stressful. Plus, like I didn't want to do any more corporate work. It just wasn't resonating. So financially, I was at a rock bottom. It just escalated and it went downhill into this place where I was like no energy at all, dependent on tea and coffee just to get through the day. And I think the turning point for me was like one day, like we were back in India, really like in this tiny house that I could just barely manage to pay the rent for. And my daughter, I remember her waking me up at 8 p.m. in the night saying, Mama, I'm hungry, give me some food. And I didn't even realize, I didn't know when I had crashed in the evening. I didn't know it was 8 p.m. I didn't know there was like, that loss of just awareness of the world around you. So that evening, that night, I decided like, enough. Like if anything has to change, it's the physical first. I can't keep crashing like this through the day. And I tried to go back to what I'd learned in nutrition in my master's degree. Wasn't really working because it wasn't just about like calories in and calories out, or it just wasn't like it was not just about the macros. And I prayed to the universe, like, give me an answer. And that prayer was answered in this chance TED talk by Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, where he spoke of how diseases could be like, you could make diseases disappear. And that's the first time I heard about functional medicine. And that's the first time I heard about, oh, blood tests, and you can look at what's going on inside your body. I was like, why haven't I heard this before? And I knew this is what I was looking for. So I just gobbled up information knowledge. You know the FMU, right? The Functional Medicine University. And then I kind of went through all of IFM's the so, the blogs, articles, bought Dr. Mark Hyman's book, Dr. Amy Myers. Like I bought all of those books, Dr. Terry Walsh, and just learned, ran my own blood work because they are quite like informative in how you can get your blood work done and stuff like that. Did that, realized all these things were going on, Hashimoto's was happening, then chose the functional nutrition methodology of eliminating gluten, dairy, supplementing, clearing up the gut, working on the gut microbiome, and I healed. I lost 37 kgs. So for me, that entire journey, and I realized that there were many people who were struggling like I was. Because when I started recovering physically, when I started changing, like I lost weight, my face changed, everything changed. I was like changing my Facebook profile pictures. So people were like, whatever you're doing for yourself, like do for us also. And 2017 is when I told like a few friends who were like interested in what I was learning that send me your blood work. Let me see if I can figure out what's going on with you. So that's literally how it started. And what had happened to me in my journey, na Deepa, I had to figure it out a lot on my own. Like now, gluten free is a thing. Like you'll even have matrimonial ads saying gluten free now. But it wasn't a thing. 2017, like even to think of options and all, like I had to struggle a lot in figuring out what to really eat, how to kind of optimize it, make it sustainable, blood tests, labs, where are the, as like, what if I can serve people by making this easy for them? There are a lot of people struggling. I have acquired knowledge that seems to be useful. Can I convert this to a application, as in not like an app, but application of knowledge where it simplifies somebody else's journey towards health? And it literally started like that. So 2017, I did this for 2 years as a solopreneur. And then 2019, I decided to kind of form a company. One of my clients turned into a seed investor, so he kind of put in some seed fund, which helped me hire like a basic team and rent an office and everything. And then from there, we've just been doing this. So now we work one-on-one with people. We run an academy where we're teaching people. We make our own supplements. But it started with that self thing, and then the desire to help others once I had recovered. And I think for a lot of us, that's been the journey, that this self thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking when you were talking about it that really it is way harder for women to walk out of a marriage, especially with a child and not having financial resources. I don't think people really understand how stressful that can be. And kudos to you. And just I hope you appreciate yourself enough for all that you've been through and all that you've turned your life around. And anyway, so you did speak about your own journey with weight loss, and I think that what we're talking about today is very much interconnected to weight loss. So what's the connection between sleep blue light and leptin resistance? And first of all, just tell our listeners, what is leptin resistance? Is there a way that they can check and find out, or are there symptoms that could let them know that they're having leptin resistance?
For sure. In fact, even this entire discovery of leptin and weight gain happened again with my own personal journey. So 2021, end of 2021, something horribly traumatic again happened in my personal life. And it felt like worse than even like separation from my child and everything. It was really bad. And it was a series. So that happened. Then like I had to go to court because I couldn't even meet my daughter. She was taken back. So lots of random stuff was happening. In that, my nervous system got entirely dysregulated because of like the constant emotional assault. And what had happened, na Deepa, in 2022, workload at iThrive was growing. This personal stuff was going on. Because of that, my sleep was getting impacted. I wasn't getting deep sleep anymore because I was in a state of anxiety. I was in a state of processing a lot of stuff. That was the year I also chose to go deep into spirituality and do a lot of the shadow work and like, just see all the repressed parts of me and like just understand what is really going on in my reality. So it was quite unsettling for the system, which is my nervous system and everything. Sleep got compromised. I wouldn't sleep continuously. I'd wake up frequently. And then what to do now when like you wake up in the night, my phone would be next to me because out of that anxiety pattern, like I would need the phone if I had to text somebody. So the phone was always there. So if I'd wake up, I'd check the phone, then I'd scroll for some time. Then again, out of exhaustion, I'd fall asleep. Um, and then because work was increasing, the balance that I'd had for time, that also was going off. So I'd be looking at my screen, like laptop itself, until late evenings, late nights. And a little bit of the emotional eating pattern came back because like, that was a pattern that I had to rework on. Now, in all of this, so I would eat late night, for example. I would not look at the circadian rhythm at all. I would skip breakfast because I would not wake up hungry. Then I'd come and have something like extremely still clean, like gluten free, dairy free, sugar free, but still, like, this is what sometimes people need to understand. And in that 1 year, I suddenly gained back nearly 13, 14 kgs. And it wasn't coming off, right? I'm eating clean. I'm eating better than most of the kids who work here, right? Why was I gaining weight? It didn't make sense. So then I went back to learning, and that's when I discovered leptin. So leptin this is like for your viewers also who might be watching, leptin is this hormone that's literally like a master controller of our energy signaling, how much energy to store, how much to expend. So leptin does that, and it does that in your sleep. So it has a diurnal, which means it has a day and a nighttime pattern. So a certain amount is secreted in the day, a certain amount is secreted in the night, and it does different things through the day and through the night. So for that, for leptin to work optimally, you have to have a good sleep and wake pattern. Because if that gets messed up, then leptin creates, like what happens with leptin is it goes into the stage of leptin resistance, where your cells are like insulin resistance. Your cells are not responding to the leptin in the body. Then that communication of how much energy to burn and how much to store goes for a toss. So the body gets dysregulated, then it starts storing all that extra energy, which is then like seen as weight gain itself. So now this is leptin. Leptin does many other things. It's also involved in a lot of the reproductive hormones. That's what I'm learning now. Like fertility issues could be because of messed up leptin signaling. But to come back to weight gain, if you have to understand how to bring your weight back into its optimal range, then you have to work and partner with this hormone called leptin, and there is no supplement for it. There is no supplement at all to bring leptin back into its optimal ranges or to reverse the leptin resistance. It requires a lot of lifestyle interventions. Now, what are those interventions we can talk about? But since you asked me, like, is there a way to check for leptin resistance? There is a serum leptin test in India. I think Dr. Lalpat does it. It's not too expensive either. In fact, we've been running it for a lot of clients now in iThrive, especially women who have weight loss resistance. The optimal range for women for leptin is between 8 to 10. Like 10 also is on the upper end. 8 is a good number to have for women. For men, it's a little lower. It's between 4 and 6. So if your leptin is higher than that, then your body is producing too much leptin and it's not being used, like it's not going and joining the receptors. Therefore, the communication is broken. For a lot of people, they could have low leptin, but still having a lot of weight gain. It's still indicative that the leptin signaling is not working because, I mean, in functional medicine, functional nutrition, it's all about optimal. It's not too low or it's not too high. So you can get this checked, and if your leptin levels are not within these optimal ranges, then it needs a course correction. Now, what is the course correction? I, in fact, did that for myself, and literally in 15 days, I lost 4 kgs, like zoop, right? And without loss of energy, without exhaustion. In fact, I had more energy because what happened is when I started understanding the nuances of correcting this leptin issue, the energy communication in my cells became better. So all these electrons that were getting wasted and that were getting accumulated, they started getting utilized better, which meant through the day I had more energy. So I felt compelled to move more. Like I didn't, like even now, I don't feel like sitting too long, which is a complete opposite of what was happening the last year. I would just have no energy. I'd be mostly sedentary. So more energy, less need for food, so the focus is totally on making sure I'm getting my nutrient, which is protein and all the micros, not so much on calories, because calories now the body is like, oh, you stored so much, let's utilize that. So that communication has started happening inside the body. Now, coming to the question of blue light and leptin. So blue light, there are enough and more research papers. Dr. Jack Kruse, I think, was the first one who started on this. But there are a lot of papers that speak of how blue light, what is blue light? It's basically all these artificial LED lights that we have or the tube lights that we have at home, which now everyone is using these, but they are the worst to use. Like we do so much better with incandescent bulbs like what we used to have when we were kids, or just basic Himalayan salt lamps. You get a lot of these Himalayan salt lamps. You can just keep them on the floor and that lighting is really optimal. So all these artificial lights that are there, blue light, the tube lights, LED lights that are there at home, um, all the lights in malls, elevators, everywhere, this light messes up the communication in our brain with leptin because it's creating an artificial range of blue light, which is not what we're supposed to be exposed post sunrise, post sunset. Pre sunrise and post sunset, we are not supposed to be exposed to too much artificial light anyway. Nature does not intend it. Otherwise, we'd have tube lights floating in from the sky. We are meant to be in that darkness pre sunrise and darkness post sunset because that's where melatonin. So post sunset melatonin production starts. Melatonin then starts communicating with your brain that it's time to shut down. When the brain goes into deep sleep states between that 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. is where a peak leptin communication is happening with the brain. So the more we expose ourselves to artificial light, the lesser melatonin is getting produced, the more it starts getting in the way of leptin communication. So phones, like, I mean, I have a red filter. Everyone who picks up my phone to use, like, what's wrong with your phone? But phones without some kind of a blue light blocker are emitting constant blue light on our faces. So are laptop screens. So are TVs. And we don't realize this. We'll do like a Netflix binge watch into the night without realizing the vast amount of blue light that our eyes and our brain and skin, everything is getting exposed to. We'll sit on our screens post sunset without wearing blue blockers, without understanding that that blue light is completely dysregulating our circadian rhythm. So blue light creates leptin resistance. Leptin resistance creates this extra weight. So that's the entire cycle. You can test for it, and then we can talk of how we can normalize it.
And I think, Mugdha, I got two key points which I felt I should clarify to our listeners from what you said. One is that, we tend to think that we should only avoid blue light after sunset. That's the common,
Yes,
a misconception. We don't think about what if we wake up at 4 a.m. and we are sitting on our phone or our computer screen. And I remember Dr. Joshua Rosenthal, he's a thyroid expert. He was on the podcast 2, 3 years ago, and he said, even if you're on your screen in the morning and you have thyroid issues, you should wear a shawl and cover and not allow the blue light to even touch your throat. And the second thing I got is that you mentioned how key it is to have optimal sleep in the darkness. So it's not that, people think, no, but I sleep from 1 a.m. and I sleep 8, 9 hours, and that's just not the case. I mean, it's not about getting 8 hours of sleep, but it's about syncing it up with when nature is dark. So I think I really wanted to reiterate those 2 points.
absolutely.
And of course, now I would like you to, I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'd like you to talk a little bit about is it necessary to run leptin tests, or do we just will these recommendations be helpful even if we are just struggling with weight loss and we can simply do them anyway?
You don't need to run the test at all, but I am a little obsessive with data and tests. Like, show me a new test and I immediately want to run it, right? So the testing is more for my understanding to be able to objectively calibrate if this is. See, weight is one way of calibrating it anyway. If you're losing weight, it's working. And losing weight without losing hair and loss of energy and dark circles, it's working. But the tests always help elucidate a point. So that's why the test. You can do all of this without testing at all. There is no need to test. But if you just doubtful, like how can one hormone cause all of this, then go check it out. Like maybe it's not in its optimal ranges. So that's why the testing is, it's not necessary or essential. So yeah, and yeah, in term, so to highlight that, Deepa, again, a lot of people like the morning time when they wake up, they are so disconnected with themselves that they need an external reinforcement of what am I really here for, like the phone and the Instagram and all that. So I had to relearn that a lot in the last year because I wake up early naturally. I mean, if I go to bed at let's say 10 or 9:30, I can't sleep beyond 5 a.m. 4:45, I wake up naturally. That's like my brain is awake. So then what do you do with your time? Like, what do you do? And like someone had, like, what do you do? You wake up and what do you do? Like, I'm like, that's the gift of time. You can meditate, you can go deep inwards. There is really no need to go look at your electronic devices. That's a habit that we should let go of in the mornings and in the evenings. It's like,
I think it's probably, I would rank that as the most difficult change for people to do. It's so challenging. I think, sometimes I see that people make changes with diet and lifestyle quickly, but that habit is something that just gets stuck. And there's so much to that, right? I mean, then we're also setting ourselves up to be influenced by opinions of everything around. It really can mess with mental health severely, leaving you anxious, feeling unworthy. There's so many aspects of that.
absolutely. Imagine like you wake up and like as you're thinking about your day, the first impression you're getting of somebody saying this is how you should look, or this is how you should be, or these are the things you should have in your life. What does that do to your entire day, right? I mean, that goes into the entire spectrum of then purpose, ambition, nervous system itself dysregulating, you feeling what you said, unworthy, not good enough. It's a horrible state to set your day up for. But do we want to go into like what are the things
Yes,
people
I
can
think
do? Yeah.
since we have just a little bit of time, maybe you could wrap it up by giving us 5 takeaways by which, if we are showing signs of leptin resistance, maybe we want to run the labs to validate that. But 5 top ways that we can improve ourselves
Perfect.
if we are showing those signs.
We'll do that. So the symptoms that should make you doubt whether you have leptin resistance or not is, this weight gain that's happening out of nowhere. You're breathing and you're gaining weight, kind of weight gain. Secondly, a lot of energy and fatigue issues. Like, I mean, assuming you've corrected your B vitamins and your magnesium, like you're taking those basic nutrients and supplements, but you're still experiencing a lot of fatigue and energy issues. And if you're having like a lot of brain fog and then like hormonal disruptions are happening, like maybe you're not taking any hormonal like pills or anything, but still you're having disruptions, then you should consider that this could be a possibility. Now, what are the things that you do? And these are the simplest, non-expensive ones. Okay, we'll start with those. You don't have to spend a penny to do this. Wake up and wait until the sun rises and let that be the first light you expose yourself. So literally first 5 minutes, just look at the sun. Now, if you're somebody who wakes up at 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m., then you're not going to be seeing the sunrise. The sun is going to be a little too bright for you to see it directly, but still expose yourself to sunlight. So facing the sun, as much of your skin getting exposed to the sun. This is like the number one thing to do, which obviously means that if you wake up before sunrise, you're not looking at your phone, you're not exposing yourself to blue light. Okay, just lie down in bed and wait until the sun rises. Just do that. That is one. Second, most inexpensive thing to do, but really works well for leptin resistance, is to eat within an hour of waking up. Because like light is a signaling mechanism about like is your day begun. Food is another Zeitgeber. So it's another timekeeper. It's another signaling mechanism. What food to eat? Ideally, good quality protein. So I start my day, for example, with eggs and a little bit of fat. So because I eat tallow, I have no qualms about it. So tallow and eggs is what I eat. But you could do eggs and maybe just some butter or ghee. So protein and some fat within an hour of eating, along with the sun rising. So sun is there, your brain is getting this information, it's daytime, it's beginning. I'm also eating to get the leptin coordination going on. Two free things. Third thing that you can do to overall bring down inflammation and help your body just reset its circadian rhythm is this thing called grounding or earthing, which is barefoot on soil as long as you can in the day. Like there is no limit. At least with sunlight, you don't want too much UVB exposure for too long because that can start causing skin damage later in the day. Grounding, there is no limit. You can be barefoot on earth as long as you can. So that's the third, like zero money. Mother Earth is there. Nature is there in all her glory. Just find a patch of natural earth and stand on it without footwear or walk on it without footwear. So this is the third thing. Helps incredibly well in resetting the circadian rhythm and getting that easy water to flow properly in the body. Uh, and then comes like some of the investments, right? So what I have, for example, are these blue blockers. So I wear these you might have these too, right? So post sunset, I always wear these even if I'm not looking at the screen. Because let's say I go grocery shopping, the store still has all these bright LED lights. Or in my apartment, even if the lights in my house are switched off, the outside lights are so strong, right? The podium lights and all, it's still a lot of blue light. So I wear these blue blockers in the night. So these become the investment aspect. So you can, and they're worth it, like they last you a lifetime. The other thing that really works well for reversing leptin resistance is infrared light exposure. So I do have a infrared full panel at home, and in India, no one's still making good ones. So you end up having to order either Bonchaj, which is an Australian one, or from the US. But it's a good investment for me. So if you expose yourself to infrared light for 15, 20 minutes a day, preferably after sunrise, because then that's the infrared time zone anyway. So you expose yourself to that light, it kind of goes into your mitochondria, it gets absorbed at a mitochondrial layer and it starts communicating again with this entire leptin cycle. So that's a second investment that's really worthwhile. And then through the day, if you can get sun exposure at different times. So your solar noon, which in India right now is 11:30, 12. that sun is the one that really creates vitamin D also in our cells. So that sun exposure for 5-10 minutes. So as many times in the day, get sun exposure, because every time your eyes see the sun is communicating time of the day. Even if you can watch sunsets, just wherever you can watch a sunset happening, then that's a communication that the day is ending. And then strictly no electronics post sunset, like until your leptin resistance gets reversed, until you come back into your optimal weight. I mean, if you can go sugar free, gluten free, dairy free, if you can put yourself through that and have the willpower to stick to clean eating, just build another habit of like will, which is no electronics post sunset as much as possible, because that blue light is really what hampers us. So that is free again. The only thing that you pay the price for is with your willpower, with the no electronics post sunset. And what I've seen works well for people with leptin resistance and weight gain is cutting down carbs. Not from the perspective of going keto for keto's sake. It's just that when the diet is high carb, there is this other thing called as deuterium that's produced, and then you have a deuterium excess, which then contributes to weight gain. So if you keep yourself like good protein, absolutely as low carb as possible, and you go with that, right? So low carb and blue light filters and like not exposure to too much blue light, a lot of sun exposure. And then ideally, again, this is free, but it's difficult, going to bed by 9:30 or so. Because if you go to bed by 9:30, you're getting like good phases of sleep in absolute darkness, where melatonin production goes up, then leptin comes, and then like your early morning cortisol is released. So everything is in the right flow internally inside your system. Where for people, when I say 9:30 sleep, they're like, what? So um, I don't know. What's your take? You've been doing this work for so long. What
I
do
mean, I
people
think
like?
the most challenging is getting people to sleep earlier. I'm asleep by 7:30 p.m.
Oh,
and my wake
lovely.
up time is 3:30 a.m. So I just love the early morning, and I feel there's so much silence and serenity in the morning. So I cannot, I feel when you said 9:30, I was like, wow, that's way past my bedtime. But they
No, there are days when I feel sleepy that early, like at 8 p.m. I'm ready to shut down, but then sometimes I have academy sessions or something, right? So, but I totally get that 7:30, 8 p.m. zone also, where you're sleepy and you just want to sleep. But when I tell people 9:30 also, they're like I tell my team and they'll be like, what? So they're still
Yeah,
like
I
in their
think it's a
20s.
big challenge. And I think what I really took from all your recommendations, Mugdha, is that obviously everyone need not start with an infrared, they don't need to make those big investments. But I think really we have to reiterate the importance of, I felt from what you spoke, if people could do just those two things. One is not looking at the phone until nature is bright by itself, and two is to just shut off completely. I mean, I've started telling people at least attempt for 2 hours before your bedtime. Forget
Hmm.
sunset, because I mean, it's like unheard of for a lot of people when I say that 5 p.m. my computer, phone, everything is switched off. Fair enough. There are people whose work does carry into certain times, but I think I would say that those were the biggest 2 points I feel. Beyond even running labs, I would tell people that you
Absolutely.
just make those changes first before anything else, because they make such a world of difference. That was a beautiful way you took us through leptin resistance. Any final words to share?
So final words would be, Deepa, through my learning about this leptin resistance thing, what I've learned is yes, functional nutrition has its place. All these advanced labs and the supplements, like 40 supplements a day, and you want to do that, you do that. But you can't replace that with basic nature-based practices, which is the key for human healing. Like your body only feels safe to truly, truly heal when it is in alignment with nature cycles. You can like there is no fix for this. I tried it, right? Like I was like, let me see the next advanced test, let me do the autoimmune panel, let me do the mycotox thing, let me do the GI map, let me do this, let me take 10,000 supplements for that. I'm down back to my basics. I'm just B complex, zinc, magnesium, and just that much. But this, it takes effort. It's more like it's more effort to think of not looking at my phone until sunrise, to plan my meals, to eat and plan my day also in a way where I have a big responsibility now, but I will not work. It is more effort to do that than to take 5 supplements with one meal. But there is no replacement for it. There is none. It is tune yourself into nature, sleep well, optimize sleep. That good sleep is where the safety for the body begins. That is where the nervous system understands that.
I totally and 100% agree with you on that. That I think as a world also we are on the search for the more complex information,
Yeah,
complex protocols. Maybe somewhere we are wired to feel something is more effective if it's more complex. But
complex.
I think we really need to go back to the time of our ancestors where there wasn't so much disease, there wasn't so much imbalance. And well said. To wrap that up, please share what's the one place you'd like to direct people to go to find you.
They could check out the iThrive website itself. That's theithrive.com because we aren't any iThrive, we are the iThrive. But it's www.theithrive.com. That's the website. Everything that we do at iThrive is there. If someone wants to book a consult with me, do the academy, figure out supplements, it's all in one place there.
Thank you, Mugdha. It was an absolute pleasure hosting you today.
Thanks, Deepa. It was lovely. And I feel that there's so much more that we can talk about. I mean, leptin was just one, but there's so much. I think, given your experience with working with so many people, I haven't even tapped into all the work that you do yet. So, looking
Today
forward
is
to reading your book.
yours. Today is your space. I'm hosting you, so it's all about you.
Thank you.
If you haven't got your hands on my book, How to Sleep Better, the Miraculous 10-Step Protocol to Recharge Your Mind and Body, hop into your local bookstore or order on Amazon. I go into how you can rebalance your whole body using functional medicine, Ayurveda, and yoga. I also have guided practices to restore balance within my healing digestion course, which you can get at www.ohahealth.com. Have a great day.
This podcast is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subject matter covered in the episodes. The podcast is not acting in the capacity of a doctor or a registered dietitian and is not rendering any professional healthcare or medical service. The information in the podcast is not intended as a substitute for medical advice or services or as treatment or cure for any particular health condition. The advice and tools contained herein may not be suitable for your situation. Any medical questions regarding contraindications and cautions or any questions on whether or not to proceed with any practices provided in the show should be referred to qualified health professionals before adopting the same. The podcast specifically disclaims any responsibility for any liability, loss, risk, personal or otherwise, which may be incurred as a direct or indirect consequence of the use of information from this podcast or the application, adoption of any of the information provided.